Hello, Ralph Cabbage here, Aquaman Knox, and today we have something very special for you. I'm happy to introduce you to Jeff Miotke, the #1 aquascaper in the United States. And something very unique about him and his wife both is they figured out how to make enough money and retire and do what we all want to do. And that's just play with our aquariums and be left alone. So I'm proud to let you talk to him today, and he's going to give us some tips and tricks on how to become rich. No, how to keep aquariums and see if you all can learn something from it. So how long have you been in Knoxville?
I've been in Knoxville a couple days. We've been hanging out and having a great time. This is our first visit to Knoxville, believe it or not. We're from Atlanta, so fairly close by, and it's been a fantastic time. Weather's been great.
But not from Atlanta originally, because you have the wrong accent.
Busted.
My relatives
Do you have a
are
guess?
there.
Do you have a guess?
Well, you told me, and I should remember, so it's sad. But tell everyone else.
Wisconsin.
It's
Yeah.
sort of like Canadian, sort of.
Yeah, Canadian light.
So I wouldn't be doing anybody any favors unless we make you pronounce your last name.
Okay, so I say Miotke.
Okay, and that's important because everybody I talk about, I mean, some people have memorable names like me. Like, hey, Ralph Cabbage, like the vegetable with one B. You remember me.
Yeah.
But, Dad, it's not exactly cool. But you got a cool name. So this weekend alone, just introducing you to people, I've been asked 2 times, is that really his name?
Growing up with that name was torture, and now I enjoy having it. So when the telemarketer calls and can't pronounce it at all.
Well, that's just like me with my name. I love having it now, but I was lettuce and carrot. And, it was everything.
I was Miyagi.
Oh, that's good.
Miyagi.
But with aquascaping, again, that's good because people asked me before they had ever seen you. When I told them you were coming, they were like, is he Japanese? So where does it come from?
I'm Japanese.
I can tell that. Where did it come from, your name?
I'm not exactly sure. It got lost in translation through Ellis Island. It was traced back to a registry that said Miotke, Miotka, but we don't know if that was because of just penmanship or if it actually somehow changed when they came over to America. So not sure. Really, our family history goes back only so far, maybe 2 generations, and we kind of lose it.
You ever thought about doing that one of those genealogy things? Do those work?
Not really. No,
I've never done one.
I haven't been that interested. This is the most I've talked about my last name ever.
Well, good. Don't realize how cool it is, I guess. So I know since we know about your aquascaping, but now that you're in your new job, I guess, or one of them is
I call it a gig.
The gig. You're a WASA ambassador, right?
Yep.
What does that mean to you?
To me, I think it's easier to tell the story of how I got partnered up with WASA. So 3 years ago, I heard about this Biomaster filter, and I have been doing scaping for a long time, and I make a huge mess when I scape. I do what I call wet rescape. So I've scaped it, I hate it, and I tear it apart while there's fish and water in it. And so you can imagine the mess, right? And it was just such a pain to get it back under control. And I was like, I need a pre-filter. So I tried rigging up pre-filters, and I just couldn't get anything to work. And I saw this filter pop up, and it wasn't available in the US. Mm-hmm. And I ran across Adam at WASA at Aquatic Experience, I want to say 2018 or 2017. And I talked to him, I introduced myself. I'm Jeff Miotke, I do aquascaping. I'm interested in your filter. And I think if it works like I think it will, I can make a lot more people interested in this filter.
Right.
And he's like, sure. They hooked me up, and ever since then, it's been just a fantastic relationship. That filter worked. It kept up with me, which is crazy. When I'm done doing this wet rescape and I pull that pre-filter out, it is just gook. Clean it off, clean those sponges off. 5 minutes later, pop it back in.
It's right
turn
back.
it on, and I'm just I'm back in action, and it's just magic for me. So it reduced my maintenance every week by hours.
And now that you're an ambassador and you're able to spend a lot of time, with aquascaping more than you did when you had, I guess, a full-time job.
Yep.
What's your goal? Do you have goals?
That's a good question. The goals really are to have fun. So here, my wife and I are in what we call happy fun time.
Right.
So we've both had very successful careers. We've worked very hard, no kids, and we are just ready to do stuff. And we worked crazy hours.
Right.
Crazy hours.
Oh, I know, and I jest, but nobody does okay without putting in the work to begin with. You don't just step into it.
That's true.
Or at least most people.
Yeah. So here we are, happy fun time. So one of the things AWASA is allowing us to do is to travel. And I am really passionate about aquascaping. I don't know if you gathered that yet.
Yes.
But I love it. It's just in my blood. It's just, I was born to do it. When I started out, I started entering contests right away, and I ranked high right out of the gates. So I just had an innate ability for it, and then it just grew from there, and just piling on skills and passion and time involved in it, and I love it more today than I did back 10 years ago. And I've been in aquarius for 40 years too, so
Right.
It's not like I'm new to the aquariums, but aquascaping, that is my passion.
So what was your first aquarium?
20 gallon, given to me by a family friend, and I lived on a lake. Set the 20 gallon up, and it had the undergravel filter, and I went to the lake and I collected all my own stuff: sand, gravel, plants, clams, fish, like little bluegills, fried minnows.
Bass, I remember it.
Yeah, I put them in the tank, and ever since then I've been keeping tanks on and off. Through college years it was a little lean, but I've been keeping.
I still remember my first tank, and it was literally stainless steel, slate bottom, and it had partitions in it, and I still own it. And my dad kept it, really, and it was a betta system that had an undergravel filter with the pipes that went like this with holes in it.
Yeah.
And then these little, it literally slate bottom. And there was a company here in Knoxville called Ram Fab, and they literally built
Never heard of them.
steel frame tanks with silicone in slate bottom. I need to put that over here sometime. It'd be cool. Put that on that.
Yeah,
channel.
showpiece, right?
Showpiece.
Probably doesn't hold water anymore.
So what was your first filter then?
I don't remember.
I do remember mine. That's sad.
Yeah,
Mine was a Dynaflow. You ever heard of a Dynaflow?
Yeah.
So it had the magnet. I think Ecotech now does the same thing with their power heads, but it had the magnet on the outside of a green box. And so the magnet spun outside of the box, and it would pull that siphon.
Yes,
and
I had one of
it
those.
was
I remember
crazy.
it. Yeah, I totally forgot about those.
They had a little box inside the box that you put floss in.
Yes.
That's what I remember, and that's what I had the bass in. I mean, you're talking about when you told me the story about the sunfish tank. I had that and a largemouth bass in a 29. It is exactly the same thing you were talking about. I was like, that's really weird.
That's cool.
So, what do you like? First canister filter you ever used?
I want to say it was a Magnum.
A Magnum, I remember those. Self-priming.
Yeah, and you could
Canister this big and
and
like
you could do
this
the-
much filtration.
You could do the insert, the pleated insert, and do the diatomaceous.
The diatom was actually pretty interesting because you could
Yeah.
polish the water. But
diatomaceous earth in there and run it. Yeah, I thought that was like necessary. That's something you do on a. I was doing that like once a month, and I had the cleanest tank.
do you remember a company called Sachem or Alpha Pet? This is one of the first. Well, Awasa, being one of their divisions, is an Italian factory. This was one of the original Italian canisters, and they were green, sort of like Eheim's became, but they were green, and they had the pump on the top, would hook with a piece of tubing. Usually would leak, and you'd pray to God it didn't come loose. But that was my
sounds
first
lovely.
canister.
Yeah,
It was. I mean, you would literally. When you connected, there were parts on it on the outside of it that you took plastic on plastic, and it just stuck together. And you just prayed that it did not leak.
It still sounds safer than snorting diatomaceous earth.
Yes, it did, definitely. I think those are off the market, the diatomaceous earth for it.
I still can't breathe right.
But that water's clear.
Yeah.
The water's clear. Now, I think we both agree on the canister filter we're both using now. Currently, what's your favorite canister filter?
Wassa Biomaster, hands down. It's my magic bullet. It's reduced my maintenance. I spend my time inside the tank instead of on the equipment.
No, there's nothing like it. Like my daughter's tank, and I was telling you, I just go in there, I pull that thing out, I rinse the pre-filter, and they're always going, "You already cleaned it?" I'm like, "Yeah." They actually accuse me of not cleaning it because my wife and my daughter send me to clean the canister filter, and they always go, "There's no way you cleaned it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." So it's fun.
It's a killer feature, and then getting a heater out of the tank on top of it.
Right.
Yeah,
get it out of the aquarium, and that's something that drives me crazy. All the ugly stuff, and I'm sure it bothers you as I watched you pick out stones for 7 or 8 hours. But
it was only 4.
No, it was very. You've got to be like that to be number one. I get it. I know why I won't be number one. So speaking of that, you talked a lot about parameters of tanks. And so we have this on the record and not too fast people. What do you think that the ideal par is for, and I realize every tank's different, but in general, what do you think the ideal par for lighting needs to be on those tanks that you do?
I run very high. You can get away with anything down to 30 par.
Okay.
So you're always going to get a range from top to bottom.
Correct.
So anything around 80 is a good light that you can pretty much grow anything. 30 is at the substrate will grow most things as well. So 30 to 80 is really kind of a safe area. You're not driving the tank too hard with energy, and you're going to have less issues with algae.
And what happens if you do jump up in the 150? I mean, you can get really high, 150, 200 range, even higher with some of the lights that are out there. I mean, I know on the reef side, some of the lights, you can just fry the coral.
800 par and stuff, crazy stuff, yeah. So if you increase that energy, that light above, you're going to drive faster growth. You're going to need more nutrients, and you're going to need CO2 because CO2 supplies carbon, which is almost half the mass of the plant. So it's like the predominant nutrient that you have to give the plant. So we're worried always about nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and iron, right? So carbon's at the top of that list. You should be worried about carbon, nitrogen, and so on, right? So you have to make sure that those are an adequate supply in the tank.
That makes sense. And for the average person, so what would you say the top end of the par at that upper level should be when they're looking for lights? Because now a lot of the manufacturers do list it.
Yeah, 100 to 150. I think most hobbyists could easily control that tank.
Okay,
yes.
So that's good. And then you mentioned nutrients. Tell me, what kind of nutrients do you recommend beyond the CO2? Do you have parameters that you test for, or do you just go with something and use it? And
yeah, so I typically will follow manufacturers' recommendations if I'm using something of theirs, and then I'll watch plant growth. Right. And I know how hard I'm driving the tank. So if I have, like my current setup, I have 2 LEDs over it instead of just the one, because I need it to fill in before the contest deadline. So I'm driving the tank as hard as it can, as much growth as I can get out of it. And I will do 3-4 times the recommended dose. And it's experience that allows me to do that.
Right.
I do measure water parameters. Many folks in the planted tank hobby don't. There's something called estimated index, where you supply enough NPK to the plants in the water column as well as substrate fertilization that is a non-limiting. So that's a good approach. The problem with that is you can get things like what I call green rock disease. So if you have too much nitrogen, you can end up, your hardscape will get a green coating of algae on it. And I'm not talking about filamentous or fuzz or anything like that. It's that hard green that you can't get off.
Yeah, toothbrush won't even hurt it.
Yeah, so that you don't want in a contest. So I limit nitrogen.
And that's one of the hardest things is when you get, teaching people to, to see. I mean, literally to see what needs to change. Because the manufacturers, some of them just try to push a lot of product. Others try to go conservative. You've got both spectrums of that. And you've got to, it's true in saltwater, freshwater ponds, you've got to see what's going on and make those modifications and understand those are just guidelines on there. I mean, you don't want to go crazy one way or the other. At the same time,
Well, and
things make differences.
That's where something like the estimated index is really great for beginners, because they can overdose the tank. So they can put too much fertilizer in. And the caveat to that is if they're doing the water changes to keep up with it. So those levels don't keep increasing. So they do a large water change weekly to reduce those levels. And so it gives you the best of both worlds. Your rocks and your hardscape might get a little bit greener, but your plants are going to look tremendous, and that's what really counts.
And we talked about CO2. So where do you run CO2? I know you said you use a drop checker just as a quick indicator, but where do you run CO2 and how do you get it there?
Yeah, so myself, I learned a long time ago, carbon's the most important thing. Plants get carbon from CO2. So getting the CO2 right was critical. It was the, turning the corner. I had okay tanks. I had CO2, they were okay. I dialed in CO2 to the correct levels, and my tanks just exploded with growth. And I'm like, okay, this is a no-brainer to do this. To dial it in, though, is more than being able to eyeball it. So you mentioned drop checker. A drop checker will change the indicator solution through a range of colors depending on how much CO2 is in the water. It'll go from blue to green to yellow. And you just stop somewhere in the green or yellowish green range, and so you're eyeballing it. So if you're colorblind or can't see colors well, that's not going to work too well. And it's not giving you a number. And it's also delayed. So when the CO2 comes on in the morning, it takes hours for that to go through its color gradations, the drop check to go through the color gradations, and that's too slow to react. So, I mean, if it's taken 3 or 4 hours to come up to the correct color, how are you going to change that little needle valve and change the bubble rate and dial in a different color? You're going to check back 3 and 4 hours and see what your colors changed to? Yeah, that's what you're going to do if you have a drop checker.
Right.
So what I do is I use a pH monitor. And I use a KH test, alkalinity test. And by measuring pH and alkalinity, you can actually calculate CO2, roughly. It's still an approximation because there's other factors in play, but gets you in the ballpark. And I shoot for 35 parts per million.
Okay.
Yep.
Top 5 things you would tell beginners. You're getting into aquascaping.
Top 5?
Top 5.
Top. Well, I'll give you maybe 3.
Yeah, 5. You can do 5. I'm keeping notes too.
Top 5 beginners in aquascaping.
Aquascaping.
Okay, aquascaping. The first thing is have fun. It is about the journey, not the destination. Even though the destination is really cool, the journey is where it's at. Just really enjoying that slice of nature. Putting the soil, the stones, and wood, and bringing your vision into reality, and then adding those plants and seeing them thrive, and then finally the fish. So enjoy the journey. The second tip I'm going to give is more technical, is to make sure that you use the full aquarium. I've seen so many times where an aquarium is aquascape just down here, and there's nothing up here. Maybe eventually some plants will go up there, but there's no hardscape ever up here. It's very, very common. Once folks start getting it so there's more hardscape in there, they really work left to right. Just across, this way or this way, horizontally across the length of the tank. And they need to be thinking more front to back and adding that depth and that feeling to it where this is coming at you and you're part of this aquascape.
So front to back is 3, technically. So up and front to back. So you got 3.
So you make sure you use the full tank.
Right.
And then don't line up like you put a stone, and a horizontal line. Don't do that. Work front to back. And then you work it this way as you're working front to back.
Right.
And it's easier to demonstrate than it is to explain. So, yeah.
You have 2 more. 3. You can do it.
The fourth is to do your maintenance. If you do the maintenance, if you pay your dues, the tank will reward you. Do your water changes, stay on your trimming, clean the filter. That's where Wassa is magic, right? It takes that chore from an hour or 2 to 2-3 minutes. Make sure you do your maintenance. It's a rewarding time. Enjoy that time. get in touch with your tank. You're going to be feeding the fish and all that, and you need to be observing, not observing, but enjoying it along the process. Make maintenance one of those enjoyable tasks. Make it easy. So back to maintenance, I don't know if this counts. This might count 5.
Yeah, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah. So, so do your maintenance. So that's number 4. Make maintenance easy. Put your kit together, what you're going to use for maintenance. Your brushes. So if you have, say, glassware or tubing, have your tube brushes so you can easily clean it. Get your scissors and your pincets and what else do we use in cleaning? Your hoses, hook up your water changes so they're easy.
Just have it ready to go.
Don't do bucket brigade, yeah.
And I love seeing all your kit, by the way. When you did the demonstration, I'm like, that's me. I like the gadgets. And you can tell from my channel. I mean, obviously, I like the gadgets because I love what they can do, but I still like the stuff. Yeah. So when I see somebody like you come out all organized with it looks like a medical kit for an aquarium, I thought it was awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so make it easy on yourself. Do a little investment in your kit and always upgrade your kit. Look for ways to shave time off your maintenance.
If you had one message to store owners, what would it be?
Message to store owners. Hey, this is a tough one. I know only a few store owners, and I've always been a hobbyist going into the store, so it's a very hobbyist point of view. But I think they need to start concentrating on making the stores a destination, a place people want to go and just hang out. I don't know what that entails, but start thinking about this and make it a destination. Events, heck, have a coffee lounge or I don't know, just probably 1,000 different things that a store owner could do. Make it a destination, a must-go see. I think that's the way of the future because the online sales, it's just... It's a commodity. You buy a filter, it's a filter. But the stores, every time I go into a store, it's an experience.
The stores need to speak, and they speak for themselves.
Yeah, it needs to be a destination. Take what it is already and amp it up. Just celebrate all this and get people excited about it. Just like we did the demonstration at your store yesterday. Right. It gets people excited about aquariums. And we need more people in this hobby.
In the same note, what would your one message be to hobbyists?
So I'm not going to go to the store way.
No, it's from you.
No. So this is what I think for hobbyists. Don't give up. Keeping an aquarium can be a challenge. And there's nothing that ruins the hobby quicker than pests. Do not leave the hobby because of pests. Get help wherever go to the fish store.
An example of a pest, just for people that
algae could be a pest. Hydra. Let's see. Funguses on woods. Fish diseases. So there's just a wide range. So when I say pests, I mean all the things that can go wrong with our livestock, plants and animals.
Okay.
Yeah. So pests are a problem in the hobby, and don't let it discourage you. There are a lot of knowledgeable people out there that are willing to help you through it. So,
and we're getting ready to go to a local store on that note and check it out and see what else he sees. Occasionally in the industry, you just meet somebody that you like from day one. That's Jeff for me. It's what makes it fun. He makes it fun. And follow his channel. What is your channel on YouTube?
My YouTube channel is Jeff Miotke, Miotke, Aquascaper.
And I'll put all of that down below in the links with some other links of some cool things he's done. I'm Ralph CABAGE, Aquaman Knox. Have a great day.